All right, good to go. Hey, welcome back, everybody. I know we probably have some return visitors and probably have some new people, so I welcome to this ongoing series, Wellness Wednesdays. My goal with this is to kind of visit, some concepts that we deal with and to try to promote wellness and the idea that what are some tools that we can bring with us. We started off with mindfulness, we're moving into meditation. I think next week we're talking about boundaries, or not next week, but next month. Time management, if things move on. So kind of our goal is to kind of just touch on things I think would be significant for everybody, but particularly you guys and your busy schedules and being healthcare professionals. So we're going to start off with meditation today, and there's going to be some connective pieces from what we did last week to what we're doing this week. But what I want to start off with is kind of showing a video that I think will kind of tie in what we talked about with mindfulness and lead into kind of meditation. It's about a 5-minute video, and then afterwards I'll kind of do a little bit more presentation and information about meditation and discussion about that, and then lead into some exercises that hopefully as a group we can kind of discuss, because my goal would be to actually have some group meditative experience as we kind of maybe get a better grasp of what does it mean to meditate, because a lot of us kind of hear the word but not quite sure what that means, and there it is kind of a word that has multiple definitions, although we're kind of looking to hone in on a particular part of meditation, I think, today. So I'm going to start the share screen and see if that works. So I got hopefully the picture of the meditating monk to start off our slideshow, and then I think I have my introduction slide, and then we'll get to the video. If it moves for me. Come on. Well, it is not moving. There we go. And one more. So let's start off with this video, and we'll go ahead and go from there.
Busy world. The pace of life is often frantic. Our minds are always busy, and we're always doing something. So with that in mind, I'd like you just to take a moment to think, when did you last take any time to do nothing? Just 10 minutes, undisturbed. And when I say nothing, I do mean nothing. So that's no emailing, texting, no internet, no TV, no chatting, no eating, no reading. Not even sitting there reminiscing about the past or planning for the future. Simply doing nothing. I see a lot of very blank faces. My thinking is probably have to go a long way back. And this is an extraordinary thing, right? We're talking about our mind. The mind, our most valuable and precious resource through which we experience every single moment of our life. The mind that we rely upon to be happy, content, emotionally stable as individuals, and at the same time to be kind and thoughtful and considerate in our relationships with others. This is the same mind that we depend upon to be focused, creative, spontaneous, and to perform at our very best in everything that we do. And yet, we don't take any time out to look after it. In fact, we spend more time looking after our cars, our clothes, and our hair than okay, maybe not our hair, but you see where I'm going. The result, of course, is that we get stressed. You know, the mind whizzes away like a washing machine going round and round, lots of difficult, confusing emotions. And we don't really kind of know how to deal with that. And the sad fact is that we are so distracted that we're no longer present in the world in which we live. We miss out on the things that are most important to us. And the crazy thing is that everybody just assumes, well, that's the way life is, so we just kind of got to get on with it. But that's really not how it has to be. So I was about 11 when I went along to my first meditation class. And trust me, it had all the stereotypes that you can imagine, the sitting cross-legged on the floor, the incense, the herbal tea, the vegetarians, the whole deal. But my mum was going and I was intrigued, so I went along with her. I'd also seen a few kung fu movies, and secretly I kind of thought I might be able to learn how to fly, but I was very young at the time, you know. Now, as I was there, you know, I guess like a lot of people, I assumed that it was just an aspirin for the mind. You get stressed, you do some meditation. I hadn't really thought that it could be sort of preventative in nature. Until I was about sort of 20, when a number of things happened in my life in quite quick succession. Really serious things which just flipped my life upside down, and all of a sudden I was inundated with thoughts, inundated with difficult emotions that I didn't know how to cope with. Every time I sort of pushed one down, another one would just sort of pop back up again. It was a really very stressful time. I guess we all deal with stress in different ways. Some people will bury themselves in work, grateful for the distraction. Others will turn to their friends, their family, looking for support. Some people hit the bottle, start taking medication. My own way of dealing with it was to become a monk. So I quit my degree, I headed off to the Himalayas, I became a monk, and I started studying meditation. People often ask me, what I learned from that time. Well, obviously it changed things, Let's face it, becoming a celibate monk is going to change a number of things. But it was more than that. It taught me, it gave me a greater appreciation and understanding for the present moment. By that I mean not being lost in thought, not being distracted, not being overwhelmed by difficult emotions, but instead learning how to be in the here and now, how to be mindful, how to be present. I think the present moment is so underrated. It sounds so ordinary, and yet we spend so little time in the present moment that it's anything but ordinary. There was a research paper that came out of Harvard just recently that said on average our minds are lost in thought almost 47% of the time. 47%. At the same time, this sort of constant mind wandering is also a direct cause of unhappiness. Now, we're not here for that long anyway, but to spend almost half of our life lost in thought and potentially quite unhappy, don't know, it kind of seems tragic, actually, especially when there's something we can do about it. When there's a positive, practical, achievable, scientifically proven technique which allows our mind to be more healthy, to be more mindful and less distracted. And the beauty of it is that even though it kind of need only take about 10 minutes a day, it impacts our entire life. But we need to know how to do it. We need an exercise, we need a framework to learn how to be more mindful. That's essentially what meditation is. It's familiarizing ourselves with the present moment. But we also need to know how to approach it in the right way, to get the best from it. And that's what these are for, in case you've been wondering. Because most people assume that meditation is all about sort of stopping thoughts, getting rid of emotions, somehow controlling the mind. But actually it's quite different from that. It's more about sort of stepping back, sort of seeing the thought clearly, witnessing it coming and going, emotions coming and going without judgment, but with a relaxed, focused mind.
So that, I hope that video was kind of helpful in kind of giving an introduction to some ideas of meditation, and then kind of reintroducing or talking about that concept we talked about last week, which was mindfulness and being able to be appreciative of the now and being in the moment and kind of not getting lost in thought. I thought that was an interesting statistic. They talked about how we spend 47% of our time in thought and how that creates stress and unhappiness. And then the kind of thing is not just the thought, but it's being distracted by thoughts that aren't the present. It's not being focused on what am I here in front of me, what am I thinking, what am I feeling now. It's about things that aren't happening, things I can't fix in the past, things I may not be able to do in the future, and missing the opportunity that's right in front of us. So I think that's what we're kind of talking about, is kind of getting into meditation. And I'm going to bring up a couple more slides kind of defining meditation. And I think the big focus for us today is kind of being appreciative of the thought of the now, and being able to find ways to be in our thought, look at it and being detached from it. Like, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling, not being sucked in and absorbed by it. Because sometimes we can get stuck in our negative thoughts and let that negative thought then dictate our behavior and action, instead of just putting it out there and letting the thought be without having to respond or react with it, and be present with it, and be appreciative that it's there, but not necessarily give it power to kind of dictate our lives and control us. Let me pop up on the screen just a little bit of these kind of definitions I have for you, just so you can kind of look at it. Wait, I got to share the screen. A little bit of a juggling act. You see the juggling balls in this video. Come on, move along. I think there's a delay, and that's why it's taking a little bit for the next thing to show up. Come on. Oh, there we go. So what is meditation? So Anyhow, it's the practice the individual trains the mind or induces a mode of consciousness, either to realize some benefit or for the mind to simply acknowledge its content without being identified with that content. I really like that definition. The idea that the mind can have content, but we don't have to identify ourselves with that content. We don't have to be our thoughts. And sometimes we let our thoughts be us, and that can take us down some negative roads. Meditation refers to a broad variety of practices, including techniques to relax and building internal energy. But the goal I like here at the end when it talks about this is that it's for compassion, love, and patience, generosity, forgiveness. It's about the serenity things that I think we all strive to have. And like it refers to, there are a lot of different techniques to meditation. I think a lot of us think of the formal meditation and the kind of the lotus sitting kind of stuff, and that may be the case. But I think, for me, the idea is somebody could be doing the lotus sitting position in a dark room with a fan on, but they could actually be distracted and not being meditating. Their thoughts could be everywhere else besides being in there. Why somebody could be busy doing something working out inside and be totally meditative because their thoughts are on the now. They're in the present. They're clear where they're going. Their conscious is just there. I'm now. I'm not kind of letting my thoughts take me this place, that way. I'm worried about. I'm just being. I'm just here. I'm just happy with the now. And so I don't think that it has to necessarily be a formal thing, although those things can be beneficial and helpful for people trying to get started because it may get you in a place where I can practice those behaviors than to learn to do them in other environments. I'm going to see if I can get the screen to bounce before I put it back on the, it's like a juggling act, two screens going on at once. There we go. So I want to talk about some of the benefits. Why do we, why do we do the meditation, for some obvious reasons. It reduces stress. I mean, the idea is, it's really not that complicated to figure that out. If we're in a situation where we are just being present, clearing our thoughts, decluttering all the things from, the past, the future, and being in now, we're going to get less stress. The brain is going to be at ease. We're going to be at peace. And that brain is then going to allow our body to relax. It's going to lower our heart rate. It's going to help us be more healthy, get our breathing in a more concentrated, effective way. I think the one thing he pointed out in that video I think is really important is that we have to take time to treat our brain. Our brain is what makes, and I know everybody knows this because I'm dealing with healthcare professionals, very smart people that understand biology very well. Our brain is dictating our whole body. It's telling it how to do. And so if we don't take care of that, inevitably we're going to have consequences with the rest of our physicality. And so it's so important to take time for things like meditation. We take time to exercise for an hour a day or half hour a day. Why wouldn't we take the same time to meditate and to give our brain that opportunity to get preventative wellness? And I like the term that he used, preventative wellness. I'm a big believer in preventative things. Of course, improves concentration. If you're practicing and decluttering your brain, you're obviously going to be able to better place to concentrate. Encourages healthy lifestyle, practice increased self-awareness, which I think is key for everybody. The idea, if I become more self-aware, I understand why I'm reacting and feeling towards things, and then I don't give those feelings as much power to respond. I can actually appreciate the things, or in times appreciate this is what I'm experiencing. That may not be what the other person's trying to make me experience, but I'm having this experience. Increases happiness. Obviously, if you're less stressed, that's going to have a natural effect. Increases acceptance. I think not only acceptance for self, but acceptance in dealing with others. Slows down aging, and then I talked about earlier benefits on cardiovascular and immune health. One of the slide or the website link that it's going to be at the end of this slideshow actually has a link to a lot of the research that shows how meditation actually has an improvement on your immunity more than even say sports or exercising. So I'll just show the next slide before I put it back to video, or not video, but myself, if it goes. Probably should start pushing ahead. There we go. So, the question is, how do I meditate? I definitely do believe there is no wrong or right way. I do think there are some things you can start practicing, earlier with this idea that you can start doing something like making a spot, that's kind of secluded and giving yourself time, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, to start practicing just being there. Maybe you can do some of the formal kind of lotus position stuff. But they talk about mindfulness. Maybe you're just sitting and being relaxed and giving yourself a place where you do some deep breathing. The idea is you can start off by doing something that's a little bit more formal, so you can learn how to take a skill and then implement it into other places. They talked about a lot of traditional meditation has a lot of mindful concepts, focus on breathing, posture, clearing thoughts. But the essence of meditation is really a decluttering of the mind. It's about getting rid of the thoughts about work and your chores and your worries, and just letting all that stuff kind of fall away, kind of like melt away, and just kind of get to the core of you, just kind of this consciousness of you. They kind of, the descriptions when doing some research on this was the talk about, like if you had a candle in a black room and you shut off everything else, that light would still be there. And I think that's kind of the idea when we kind of want to do meditation, is kind of be in a place where I can get rid of all this stuff and I can just focus on that one thing, and this thing that's present, and my current thought, my current what is here, and kind of detach and not necessarily have like an emotion with it, just kind of just appreciate and be in front of that. I know I just blocked my face to the video. I'm working on this. And so I'll bring up the thing. We're going to talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. Is I think we're going to try to do some group meditation. I mean, it's going to be a little bit difficult, maybe, doing it through the computer system here, but we're going to see if we can pull it off. Let me get to this next slide. There we go. So we're going to talk a little bit about group meditation, and having kind of many people. I mean, most people have a familiarity with this kind of doing religious practices. We go, if you go to a church service or any kind of, a synagogue or a mosque or something like that, there usually at times and experiences where you may be, kind of in a moment where somebody may be praying or reading a passage, and you're kind of being supposed to be present with it and kind of there, or just silence. I was at a service not that long ago. My fiance sings in a choir, and they had it. It was on the Ash Wednesday, and it was just a silent service where there was some chanting they did, and then it was just 10 minutes of silent meditation. It was really peaceful, candles lit, and just being kind of there. So I think a lot of people have familiarity with meditative practice based on maybe some of their personal experiences they've already had. But it can be a contemplative, thoughts over a passage or a piece of music or a piece of art. And I think that's what we're going to do today. I have a passage that I'm going to have I'll read it, but let you give you a minute to read it too. And then maybe have a discussion about just what I read this and where are my thoughts at with this. Kind of detaching from everything that's going on and just being with this kind of passage that I read. That's kind of maybe a real, I'm hoping will be kind of a thing that will create a thought and an experience with you. In the conversation that I'm going to kind of encourage with us is to kind of be a non-judgmental one, a self-reflective expression is what I'm looking for with everybody. As you read it, and what is you're experiencing? What are your thoughts? Where are you at in this now with the kind of this thing? How did it, when you got triggered by this or stimulated by this passage, what was your now? What was happening with that, and kind of be able to share and then hear other people. One of the nice things about group meditation is you can hear somebody else's perspective, and it can create, again, another thing for you to kind of, expand onto what you're experiencing and something else to contribute to your thought and in that here and now, and it can appreciate it. A lot of times in treatment centers, and I've worked a lot of my career in facilities, they have the groups wake up and do a group meditation, where they start the day and they end their day, this 10-minute thing, and they read out of a daily reflection book, and I do that. And a lot of clients will tell me that's one of their most rewarding parts of that treatment experience, is having the time just to kind of reflect on something and be there with stuff and be with other people reflecting and sharing. So I'm going to bring up the slide for the next one. So this is the reading to meditate to. It's it's a Mother Teresa quote. So I'll read it, and I'll give it kind of the group just kind of a minute to kind of read it themselves and kind of think, just reflect and be with it for a minute or so. And then we can kind of maybe open the discussion a little bit. Life is an opportunity. Benefit from it. Life is a beauty. Admire it. Life is a dream. Realize it. Life is a challenge. Meet it. Life is a duty. Complete it. Life is a game. Play it. Life is a promise. Fulfill it. Life is a sorrow. Overcome it. Life is a song. Sing it. Life is a struggle. Accept it. Life is a tragedy. Confront it. Life is an adventure. Dare it. Life is luck. Make it. Life is life. Fight for it. I'll give everybody kind of just a minute to kind of reflect on that, and maybe we'll be able to open up a little bit for kind of just, just kind of where am I at with that passage, and what kind of thoughts am I experiencing, and kind of just sit with that for a little bit, and then kind of maybe have a little bit of discussion about it. So I'll give about a minute right now. Okay, let's see how this kind of how this works. I'm gonna kind of see if we can open up kind of a little bit of a discussion with the people, you guys that are on this kind of panel with us, and kind of maybe discuss a little bit, just kind of, just kind of where you're at, how that passage, the kind of where you're being in the here and now. Okay.
So if you guys would like to participate and talk, you should be able to unmute yourself in the box that says your name. Hopefully we'll go from there.
I see a few people, so it's good to see you. And I know this is kind of it's a little bit of a challenge to telecommunication, not necessarily in a group, but I don't know if anybody had anything that kind of, in reading that, just kind of where that kind of took them a little bit.
This is Dr. Steve Ulrich. I got logged in a little bit late, so I've been meditating between the emergencies morning, trying to get logged on here.
Sure. Good to have you. Good to have you.
And I may be running in and out still.
Okay. Okay. Well,
reading that passage,
yeah.
There was a lot of feeling of for every negative there's a positive.
Mm-hmm.
And so often we focus on the negatives and we don't think about the positive aspect, but everything's in a balance. So I think we need to look more at the positives.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that that balance. And I think that's one of the challenges. I think what meditation's there for is a little bit of that creating that okayness with what is, and appreciating that, hey, this might be challenge, but every challenge usually brings a new opportunity. Who else might have anything that kind of reflective on that?
Can you hear me?
Oh, how you doing?
Fine. I was just trying to do some meditation before, and I think the difficulty I have is to leave the office or the place where I'm at, because it's hard to do in here. Mm-hmm. I go down to the basement. There's a little conference room in my building, and then I cannot go in, and the light is dark, and kind of sit down and do the breathing technique only. Mm-hmm. And I find that helpful, except it's hard to do it. It's hard to get the timing. Is it a lunchtime, or is it right after I finish with patients, then I want to go home, or should I do it at home? So if you can suggest a place, or you just do it as you can, either in your office or at home, what would be the best timing to do your daily meditation, I guess? Sure. That's the question.
Okay. No, I appreciate it. Thanks for the question. Yeah, I think that and maybe this will kind of go into the discussion part of our presentation, is that I think it is difficult. I think most people would talk to me when they talk about meditation is they find a routine, something that they know that every time this day I can make this time. That's challenging because you guys have unpredictable work schedules. So work may not be the most ideal place to be able to set that because you may not have as much say in what kind of goes on there. Or somebody might be, even if I put myself in the office, I can't determine somebody's not going to knock on that door and disturb me while I'm in there. I think most people, and this is a personal experience for me as well, that when I do stuff in the morning, it sets the right tone for my day. I think I shared last week, I'm in recovery. So when I make the time to read a passage, reflect on that for a few minutes, I do some exercise in the morning. And then if I can, on the weekends, that's when I usually do my meetings. Like my mornings my whole day is then filled with like, I'm in a different perspective with what I'm focusing on. And even those challenges that may have been there, especially when it's coming out of a work week when you're like, man, it just makes that a rewarding weekend. Like I'm appreciating, celebrating the time I have with my family, with myself, what I can do so much more than I would if I'm, kind of, I don't know. For me, I'm not good at like sleeping in and doing it. I feel like I do things to try to be active to kind of get my mindset ready. So I have maximized that time for me. So for me, when I hear you saying it, I would probably do it at home. It's probably easier to find a place with less distraction, but I got kids too. So that's even difficult. So I have to beat them to it, getting up. I beat everybody up. I'm up at 6 to get kind of put that stuff into my life. I've just found it to be beneficial. I can't say that I'm always perfect, and it obviously gets disrupted when you take vacations and stuff like that. But I think it helps for me in those environments.
Sure.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I found that home, even if there's nobody there, is a distraction.
Okay.
Because there's dishes or there's something to put away or whatever. So if I can get to the office 5 minutes early and sit in my car in the parking lot, nobody bothers me. If I go in my office, somebody bugs me. If I am at home, the house bugs me. So even just 5 minutes to sit quietly in the car, whether it's listening to music or just quiet by myself, sometimes is the only time I can find in the day.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing that. I used to, when I was doing my grad stuff, my car was my meditative spot. I will tell everybody, I have a spot when we bought our house, I made a room for me. It's got my music stuff in it, but it's my spot where it's my space. Nobody else comes into, so I can take that time in the morning for it. That was one of my demands when we were buying the places, that we got to be able to put a wall here, and this would be my place to put the instruments and my place to kind of escape when I need to escape. So, but I think the car is a great thing. I have a piece too. If we get to it, the reflective music is a great meditative thing. It allows you to really clear thought, especially music without words, because I think it allows us just to feel and not get kind of into meaning.
I have another question. Sometimes when I try to meditate, I try to fix my problems or try to say, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do this, whatever. Presentation, take this class or take this CME. So instead of thinking about nothing hard, I'm trying to get away from those thoughts or problem patient or whatever. So how do I get rid of that? Just concentrating on music or just concentrating on your breathing? Or what technique do you suggest to get rid of your intrusive thoughts when you're trying to meditate, I guess? I don't know.
I think that's a great question. I think that's the hardest part. I think the whole point of why we're doing that is to try to start challenging that, because I think most of us, when we initially take some action to try something new, it is not easy to do that. And we have so many demands kind of thrown at us. I mean, I understand that. Even in my job, I got a lot of things thrown at me. It is very hard to do that. I would tell, there's two things I would say. First of all, engage in the practice just to try and start doing it, because it's not going to be easy right off the bat, and it's going to be difficult to get to that place. So give yourself forgiveness into that and allow yourself to, if you're doing 10 minutes of meditation and yet you only get a couple minutes where you actually feel clear, that's 2 minutes better than you had not doing it, So give yourself that stuff. I think the hard thing too is I think everybody's individual, but I think that you made a good point. Like, I think some people do well with some things like a music or a noise that can kind of calm them and kind of help the brain kind of calm down a little bit. Some people can, with just silence, allow their brain to shut off a lot easier than others. So if you find something like that, I would definitely not have something that's aggressive, because I think that will create feeling. I think something that's calming, something that's easing, and something that doesn't have, again, lyrics. Lyrics are something that will pull us away from it. I think a lot of us like music, like somebody like Bob Dylan or the Beatles, because we like what they're saying, you know, but the part of that is it pulls us away from, then we're into that thought, instead of just something that's kind of just like, you know, calming and just kind of lets our body relax. I think that's kind of the trick too when we talk about this mind-body comparison, is if I have something that gives energy to me, then my blood pressure is going to go up, my thoughts are going to start, and so I need something that's going to kind of help the physiology calm down. So I think that's a good idea. Some people get some noise machines, and kind of that can be helpful, like this kind of white noise machines, or like ocean sound stuff, or like, you know, and that kind of helps put them in a serene place. And sometimes maybe that's the environment. You try to find an environment that maybe it's not internal, and maybe it's external, that creates peace, where it lets your mind shut off. That just the environment creates that serenity. I think one of the problems for me, if I try to meditate in an office, it's a good place. I love my job, but it comes with it. There's a lot of things around there that can distract me very easily. Like I got to get I think one just been shared that I can be easily distracted by things I got to get done. I got this paper I got to write. I got to do this. You know, I got things to do here. So it's not a real helpful environment for me to be in that. So maybe I can look for things even not in my home environments, but something maybe external. You know.
Sure.
Just a couple of thoughts real quick. One, I tend to do my meditation late at evening after I went through my numerous labs for the day. And we just built a new house, got a large screen TV, and I go to YouTube and put on just plain Gregorian chant. And it really helps me. And then what I do through the day is when I feel myself really getting tense, I just take a break at my desk for a few minutes, close my eyes, take a couple of deep cleansing breaths, and kind of reflect on hearing that music in my head. And I think it's important to be able to carry the meditative state with you as you go through your day. It's a real challenge, but every now and then, once you get familiar with that place, you can go back and visit it even in the moment. And I have a pretty sick kid I got to go see here in a little bit. And so before I go in to see that kid, I'll just take a few minutes to take a deep breath, you know, calm, and then I'm ready to go. But it is tough. The wife and I did, back when I was in pre-med and medical school, we followed one of the gurus from India, and so we did the really pretty intensive thing of getting up at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning and spending an hour. So it was a good place to be, but it's not a real practical thing when you're trying to raise 3 kids and study medicine. But I think if we can find that moment of quiet reflection throughout the day, that keeps us more grounded and more calm as we go through the day.
Nelson, actually, Dr. Ulrich's comments lead into a question that was submitted about what is the role of a meditation guru or master? And is it necessary to seek their guidance to attain true meditative success?
I think that is a really interesting question. I think they're very helpful and very beneficial. I think that there's something, if you have the time to be able to experience, I think it probably is something that's very enlightening. I can tell you I have not had that opportunity to do that. I do work with a participant that actually did spend some time, like a week. It's somewhere in Columbus too, where he went to and spent time with monks and did a whole week of just meditative. No, they didn't talk or anything. It was just you sit and did meditation for a while, and then you'd walk around. They had a lot of meditative stuff, you know, that they would kind of practices they would do even when they were moving to do these reflective things. So I think that probably gives you more tools and enlightenment. And like if you're able to kind of get with somebody, you're probably going to get challenged in a way that if we do it on ourselves, we're probably going to stumble through it. And it's probably going to be a harder process to kind of really fully get the experience. I think we can get there because I think and there's enough tools available that we can find a way to get there. But I think if you have the opportunity to do that, I mean, how would that not be beneficial actually to improve that? And I think their role is to if somebody's been practicing something for 30 years, and you guys know this probably in medicine, you probably have some instinctual things that can come that you can really pass along to somebody that's really new to that process. So I think there's a lot of things. I really appreciate what you said too. I love that you talked about doing it at night. I think night can be real beneficial. I'm a guy that does, when I spend time at night, is reflect on my gratitude list. Like, what am I what have been the gifts that I've experienced, and what am I still happy, especially if I've had a rough day, so I can sort of reflect that a lot of good stuff is still happening in my life. So I do a little bit more reflection on a gratitude list than maybe like kind of the silent time. But I think I appreciate it. I think it can be done anytime. I think it is what works for you. There are, but I was going to say that I think there are places actually here in Columbus where you could actually sign up and spend time with people and experience what it's like to kind of have that silent meditation and be with guru. The teachers talk, so you don't, but the teachers do. So and maybe that's also a little bit of a humbling experience too, to have that, you know. So I hope that kind of helped to answer the question.
You did, and thank you. I think you also touched early on our previous question about routine and establishing that for success. What about quick meditative practice? I mean, is there a duration that you think you find is the most successful? Is a quick 10-minute as effective as maybe 30 or 45 minutes?
Oh, well, so this is a practice. So like anything, the more you spend time you spend practicing something, the more benefit you're going to have, or the more you'll be able to be successful with it. I think one of the things that Dr. Ulrich talked about was the more he practices it, the more he's able to take that with him to when he needs it throughout the day. So I think the more you practice something, the more that skill is going to be available to you to access. So I'm going to talk about, we're going to talk about time management. That's not next week, or not next month, but the month after. So it is hard to find that time. So I would, like when we were talking earlier, I would say give yourself whatever you can give right now to start. I think if you give yourself 5 minutes and you find benefit, you'll easily start finding yourself giving yourself 10 minutes. I think you'll start finding yourself, hey, if this is working, 15, 20 minutes. The studies with the research I've been reading about it, they're talking in the range 10 to 20 minutes is usually a really effective time to kind of really get a good, if you do that every day, you're really going to be able to see some of those long-term benefits that we talked about as far as health, you know, as far as stress reduction, as far as mental clarity, those kind of things. But, you know, it's like they have those things where you do from couch to 5K. You know, you're not getting up and running the 5K immediately. So you start with what you can get, you know, something new. Just doing something, I think, is better than not doing anything. You know, but that might be the counselor side of me when I'm trying to, you know, motivate change with people that are resistant to change, you know.
Have you ever used iconography?
No, I don't know. Can you?
Like icons? Pictures
No.
or objects?
You know, that's a great, so I know that's the way some people do it. I have not personally done that or done anything with people that were done image-wise. I've done some things with music, I've done some things with readings, but I have not done with that. But do you have anything that you might want to share? Have you experienced that?
We were led through an exercise at a retreat I went to, and everyone was just encouraged to pick up a picture or an item off of a table just randomly. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of stared at that while we had someone lead us through a little discussion at first, and then we just stared at it, and you'd be amazed at what you thought you picked up a picture of. You started seeing different things in it as you spent more time. Mm-hmm. And yeah,
no, I appreciate that.
I hadn't done before.
No, and that's my understanding of that, how that works. I think that's, and I've had a lot of people. I've done one thing similar to that. I did to a healthcare professionals retreat, and they had a meditative beginning process where they had this, they called it a map of experience. And it was just this map. It was kind of like, you know, like a Tolkien-esque map or a Game of Thrones kind of map that was out. But the words that described locations were like hope, fear, anxiety, you know, something, you know, joy. They had all these places, you know, it was like the Isle of Sadness or the Isle of Serenity, and so you just stared at it for, you know, we'd spent 15 minutes just kind of being with this and being with this image and allowing it to kind of take us places. And I find that was one of the most rewarding things I've done. I actually had the therapist give me the copy of the map. So I've done it with people, and I've done like live presentations where we just spend that, you know, 10 minutes where they just look at it and then we just process. And we can process that for like an hour because there's so much that people get out just connecting with this image and those things, and how it's on a map makes you feel something about that differently than you thought that word before. You know? And so I have some familiarity with that, but you're right. We talked about last week with mindfulness, this looking at an object and just appreciating and seeing it and how it changes and what questions it comes to that you would never thought about before if you don't take the time to appreciate. I mean, sometimes we're so rushed, we just see things like, oh, that looks nice, and go on. And so when we can really dig into it, it's like, wow, there's so much deeper meaning to things.